cafe vibe. I think it's a really honorable thing, particularly for long form writers such as myself. To write in a cafe is, you think Paris, you think Dublin, Tokyo, New York, and Vancouver. Why not, right? So book 1 is Brahma and the Beggar Boy, epic fantasy in verse dealing with climate change, social inequality, a biocontagion, a time-traveling locksmith, brown, brave, and beautiful, with many, many adventures, mostly bad, some good. And then that all leads to book 2, which is Brahma's Quest. So a vast, epic scope, many different locations. And then so Brahma's Quest continues 18 years after book 1. And then we have Brahma's Discovery, which takes place in the year 2110. It's called Brahma's Discovery because she's faced as this inverted kind of Robin Hood hero. She's faced with some really tough decisions, about what does it mean to be a hero and can you really be one? And she's more of an anti-hero and coming to the terms with she's a demigoddess, and her origins are a mystery. So Brahma's Discovery in book 3 of the series really forces her to come to terms with what is the nature of idealism in a post-apocalyptic, climate change accelerated world where there's a huge amount of social inequity. And in the end, it's all about individual people and workers, tradespeople, seed savers. There's magic because it's epic fantasy. Yeah, it all comes together. And I was thinking about this in advance of our conversation. I was thinking, why am I so drawn to these big, epic, long form, stories or cycles or sagas? I do occasionally write individual poems. When I was a Poet Laureate for Surrey, I wrote individual poems, occasional poems. I love doing that, and I still do. But by and large, my work is really centered in long form writing. And so why would that be? And I do wonder sometimes, is it partly my South Asian heritage? Maybe, but also then that has introduced me to the epics of, Tolkien and the Nordic sagas, the Welsh, the Irish. It seems when you dig deeper, Persian, Chinese, like every culture loves an epic, really. We like long, big stories. We do. Dr. Abigail Anderson. So as a writer of color, I was very drawn and called to write about a white woman settler citizen in a dystopian world, born in the year 2020. This first book came out in the pandemic. She's absolutely one of my favorite characters. And if you haven't read the book yet, I'll just tell you right now, it does not end well for her. You just got to be prepared. And she's just an incredible character. And so many things happen to her. And, if you think of a doctor who's born in the year 2020 and then things go really, really bad because it is epic fantasy and what she is forced to do. And one of the key things she does that's very, very hopeful is she adopts a young beggar child who she vaccinates and saves from some terrible incidents and gives her her name. So this issue of the naming of people and their origin is very embedded in the series. So the hero Brahma, not sure about her background, raised by her grandmother, never met her parents, thought she was an orphan, turns out she wasn't. Dr. Abigail Anderson comes from a very wealthy family. She turns her back on her executive father and, sides with her more wellness, seed saver mother, and goes on this incredible epic journey where things don't turn out very well for her, but she adopts this beggar child and names her Abigail. And so Abigail's story continues. And alas, her daughter Abigail meets some very trying times as well. Yeah, I'm just preparing both. And then their son, Raphael, really features in book 2. So this idea of a family saga that continues on, interestingly enough, I think is kind of connected to my bee work with the wonderful Dr. Mark Winston. When we look at the role of the hive and the family hive of bees and the queen bee and honeybees and what they signal for the environment and what they do for the environment. So yeah, it's all kind of connected, I think. There's something about science and ecology that clearly I'm drawn to. For instance, in the bee book, Dr. Winston gave me access to 40 years worth of his scientific research on the honeybee. That includes a real change in his own thinking about how we protect the environment. So hybridity really up, pesticides really down, like a real journey of discovery of what is good for the bees is good for the environment. And so the book is listening to the bees. And I was given access to that, and that science really spoke to me. Even though I don't really understand the technical terms, in terms of the textuality of language, I started playing with that. And I think that I've been doing that all through my practice. In my first book about a very sad topic, the bombing of Air India Flight 182, and the death of my aunt and uncle and many others. Again, I went to archives, I went to records, I went to reportage, and I embedded that into my poetic practice. So yeah, it all seems to tie together, but it's all long form. You know, the first book is a book length poem divided in 5 sections. And then Listening to the Bees is a series of poems that are interspersed with Dr. Winston's reflections on over 40 years of science. And in Listening to the Bees, there's 3 strands. There's science, there's ecology, and then there's both of us tell our personal stories about what we've gone through. And then there's the epic, which is really a series of personal stories embedded in these profound environmental catastrophes and political, social, geopolitical catastrophes, and how do human beings deal with it. I have a lot of notebooks, and they all represent different stages in my craft and process. So this beautiful notebook was bought down at Granville Island at one of the lovely independent bookstores down at Granville Island, and it's that famous Japanese woodblock painter and engraver Hiroshige. I love it so much, and it serves as an inspiration. And I keep it by my bedside, and it's for what I call composition and inscription of individual bits of poems that I work on that go into Thought JBAP, which is the acronym for The Heart of This Journey Bears All Patterns, which BC's own Top Shelf Creative and Nadina Tandy, the artist, have so beautifully designed and illustrated. So Thought JBAP is the acronym for this series. And this little book stays by my bedside, and I write poems in it. Yeah, you know, it's so nice to be asked that. I was appointed the first ever Poet Laureate for the city of Surrey the same year that Justin Trudeau, our departing Prime Minister, became Prime Minister, 2015. So I was Poet Laureate for three full years. It was an amazing experience. I loved every moment of it. It was about consulting with writers in the community and the public. It was about responding to public events for the city council, for the library. The library hosted the program. They were incredible. I did so many community events. We wrote a book together, Surrey Stories Connect. It's such a beautiful little book in the library system. We did workshops where we created with teens little chat books. So it was about creativity, consultation, community, and honestly, it was like the honor of my life. Like, it was just fabulous. I love being Poet Laureate, but it was also like, I don't want to be it again. You know, like, it was really great. I think being Poet Laureate is a thing you do as service. And I wrote my bee book, and I was working on this series. It can really feed your creativity, but it's also really demanding, and you have to be really responsive, I think, you know, to do a good job to the public. And then you move on. So it's nice to be asked that now, because it's 2025 and I was appointed in 2015. So it's a 10-year journey. Yeah.